Let's look at the rest of the questions on GDP. Question 8, we have to find out the total value added from farm A to farm E. The value added means we subtract the old value from the new value. If the question was asking the value added between farms A and B, it would have been 1250 minus 800. We can find out the value added between two stages of the production process or the total value added. So this one, farm E, they are the final buyers of the product. By total value added, we have to find out the GDP. We can do it in two ways. First, we can find out the value added between each stage of the production process and add them up together. Value added by farm A is 800 minus 0. Now, if we do all the math, we are going to get this answer, which is 3800. The second way is just stating that the value added by the farms is 3800. That's the GDP, and that's basically which we will get by adding up all the value added. All right, moving on to question number 9. So this question is saying GDP was 200 billion in year 1 and all the components of expenses remain the same in year 2, except that business inventories went up by $10 billion. So we have to find out the GDP in year 2. So the inventories went up by $10 billion. That means the economy produced $10 billion more output than what people purchased. And we have to count all the output produced in that year as part of that year's gross domestic product. So for year 2, it's going to be 200 plus 10. Remember, GDP is the total value produced, not the total value sold. This is 210. Question number 10. The GDP was $240 billion in year 1. However, in year 2, the business inventories fell by $14 billion. So this means the economy sold $14 billion more of output than it produced that year. It did that by selling goods produced in prior years. Unless corrected, these expenses will overstate GDP. I'm going to subtract 14 billion from 240 to get the correct value, and our answer for this question would be $226 billion. So is this one. Now let's take a look at question number 11. So this one says, why is the labor of carpenters to repair their own homes not included in GDP calculation? So the answer is C, because the Bureau of Economic Analysis only receives data on economic transactions in which output or resources are traded for money. This one, These are productive services, but they do not take place in a market and no money exchanges hands. That's why it's not included as part of GDP calculation. Question 12, veterans payments. These are included as social security payments, and these are examples of public transfer payments. Even though these are expenses of government expenses, but nothing productive comes out of veterans payments as per the definition, and as a result it's excluded from the GDP calculation. Looking at question 13, a transfer of funds from one private individual to another. This can be allowances given by parents to children. This is an example of private transfer payment. Okay, moving on to question 14. This one says Alejandro owns a store specializing in soccer jerseys. He purchased 150,000 worth of jerseys and he sold the jerseys for 280,000. Is not asking for the final value or the total value added. We just need to find out the value added between these two steps of the production process. It's just 280,000. From that we subtract 150,000 and we end up with 130,000 as our value added between these two steps of the production process. All right, let's take a look at question 15. Question 15 tells us a business buys $1,000 worth of inputs in order to produce a product. The business makes 500 units and sells them for $3. The value added by the business to these products is how much? My answer is gonna be 500 times 3. From that, subtract $1,000 and we end up with 500. So this is the one. Moving on to question 16. Arthur sells $100 worth of cotton to Bob. Bob turns the cotton into cloth which he sells to Camille for 300. Then Camille is using the cloth to make prom dresses that she sells to Donita for $1,000. Now Donita sells the dresses for $2,000 to teens planning to go to prom. What's the contribution to GDP of this series of transactions? Is this one. We are just looking at what the final buyers are paying for these dresses. And this is gross domestic product. Question 17. This one says gross investment was to 40 billion and net investment was 180. From gross investment, if we subtract depreciation, we are going to end up with net investment. And the country's capital stock, this is the same as the net investment. This will be our answer. The capital stock went up by $180 billion. Question 18. The net exports are negative when? So net exports is a difference between exports and imports. It's going to be negative when the imports are greater than exports. So this is our answer to this question. Hope this helps understanding the concepts. Thank you very much.